Hi, I'm Duke Southard, owner, director of Southard School of Racing. We're based in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. We're here today at Volusia County Speedway, which is about 40 miles west of Daytona. This is where we do the driving for our school on the driving day that we're out here. This video is going to cover the driving techniques for dirt, some safety, flags and stuff like that, mainly just for the driver on the dirt. The flags, first thing we'll cover, the meanings, what they're all for circle track racing. They're a little bit different than they are for road racing and some other types of racing. First of all, the green flag. The green flag is the race is underway, the track is clear, everything's ready to go. Normally, the flagman will roll the flag up and point it at the cars as they go by to let them know that the next time they're going to go green. So if he's got it rolled up, that means that the following lap is going to be a green flag lap, or that's when he intends to start the race. When it's then unfurled and waving, the race is underway. As far as the lights on a racetrack, most racetracks have three different lights. They have a red, a yellow, and a green. This track here just has a red and a yellow. So if neither one of them's on, it means the track is green. But a lot of them do have a green light that they put on when when the race starts. They go ahead and drop the green light at the same time they drop the green flag. The next flag that we should think about would be the yellow flag. The yellow flag means there's a hazard on the racetrack. You're to proceed with caution. You can continue to go around the racetrack, but realize that there's probably been some oil on the racetrack, some water on the racetrack, something that could cause a hazard. Somebody spun out. So keep your eyes open real well when you see a yellow flag or a yellow light on the racetrack. Now, a yellow light on a pace car, it's the same as a yellow light on a racetrack. You're not allowed to race, but it just means they're pacing you, they're setting the pace for you. You stay behind the pace car in all conditions. You never, under any conditions, are allowed to pass a pace car when the yellow lights are flashing. When the yellow lights are not flashing, they're supposed to be off the racetrack, so there should really be no condition where you should ever pass the race car on the racetrack. The yellow, unfurled, unsafe track conditions, water, oil, somebody's crashed, something that you should be aware of. The racing conditions have stopped. If some racetracks, like this one for example, when they go to the yellow flag, they go back one lap, so they don't continue to count. If you've just passed somebody, then you're going to have to go back behind them if the yellow flag comes out on that lap, because they go back to the previous lap to realign the car. So a lot of times you'll either lose or gain a position because the yellow comes out at the wrong time. Some tracks, there's a few of them in the country, where you race to the yellow, which means if the yellow is in front of you, you're going to have to race through some incident to get to the flag stand, but they're going to bring you onto the flag stand. Most of the Winston Cup races and stuff like that, the NASCAR races, they do race the yellow, but most of the short tracks, they do not. They'll go back one lap. Okay, the next flag we're going to talk about will be the red flag. Under the red flag conditions, you're to stop as soon as possible. You don't slam on the brakes and cause a major accident because of the flag, but the red flag means that the race is no longer being conducted, that it's to be stopped at that point. It will always go back a lap under red flag conditions. It means that there's something bad enough that they're probably going to bring an ambulance onto the racetrack, or that they wish to stop the race for some major condition on the racetrack. Some racetracks allow you to get out of the car, check your air, but most of them do not allow you to work on the car under the red flag. If you work under the car under the red flag, you have to then go to the pits. Then if you go back to the racetrack, you've got to start dead last. So the red flag there's a major hazard on the racetrack. You're to get stopped. You're not to continue going like you do under the yellow flag. A lot of times, a thing I should mention also on the yellow flag is on the start of the race, they've got everybody lined up, and they give you the furled green flag, letting you know they're going to give it to you the next lap. And the next lap, maybe somebody in the middle of the pack is out of line a little bit, and they decide they don't want to stop it, so they'll drop the yellow instead of a green coming off of turn 4. A lot of people slam on the brakes when they see that yellow. That yellow is just like it always means, that you're to proceed under caution, but normally in that lap it means somebody's out of line or out of position. And I've seen some major crashes because somebody sees that yellow flag, slams on the brakes, and the guy behind him is on the gas, doesn't realize that they got the wrong flag in their hand, and it can cause some major crashes on the beginning of races. So be real cautious on the start of this race. If they don't go green, you still go ahead and make the start, and then slowly into turn 1 you want to back off and get back into position and get ready to restart the thing again, because they obviously didn't start at that time. The next flag we're going to talk about is the blue and yellow flag. This is a caution flag. That means in circle track racing that you are about to be lapped by the leaders, you're holding up traffic, and that you should move over and get out of the main groove, or at least maintain your groove and let the other cars pass. You're not supposed to be blocking, you're not supposed to be racing with them. What they're saying is these guys behind you are at least a lap ahead of you, and therefore get out of their way and let them have their race, and don't cause a big incident when you're not even in that part of the race. So a blue and yellow, move over, or at least hold your line and let the cars pass. It means you're being overtaken by faster cars. The next flag we're going to talk about is the black flag. The black flag in short track racing means that there's something wrong with your car in most cases, or you have caused an incident that they want to talk to you about. A black flag waved at you on the racetrack normally means that you have 3 laps to get off the racetrack, and then they're going to quit counting you. That means maybe you're dragging a pipe, you're spilling some water, spilling some oil, you're smoking too much, or there's a problem with your car, or maybe with your technique, maybe you're blocking, and the officials wish to have a consultation with you. They'll wave the black flag. You can continue on normally for 2 to 3 laps and still be counted. After 3 laps, then they're going to bring you into they're going to quit counting you, so you might as well go into the pits, talk to the officials, get the problem solved that you've got, and go back and get into the race. The next flag we're going to talk about will be the white flag. Okay, the white flag in road racing means that there's a problem on the racetrack, maybe an ambulance or a rescue vehicle or something on the racetrack. They continue to race everywhere except where the flag is displayed. In circle track racing, short track racing, anytime the white flag is displayed on the racetrack, that means there's 1 lap to go in the race. Most of the time, when the white flag comes out, that means the race is coming to a conclusion. So if you do get a yellow on the last lap after the white has been waved, the checkered flag is coming anyway, so they're going to go ahead and finish the race. Some places they will go back a lap when they drop the yellow after the white, and then have to drop the white 1 more time. So the white flag means the last lap of the race. The next lap we're coming to the checkered, and it's the finish of the race. So any move that you're going to make, you're going to have to make that lap, because that's the last one you've got to make it with. And obviously this is the one we're all looking to see first, and that's the checkered flag. That means the race is over. You proceed then off the racetrack to the pits, to the scale area, or wherever you've been instructed to go after the race, to have your car checked, or take it to your pit area if they don't check your car after the race. So this is the flag we're all looking for to see first. It's a black and white checkered flag. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is safety. I want to talk a little bit about safety before we get out in the race car, and we'll talk about belts and harnesses and stuff like that. Okay, in this portion of the video I want to talk a little about safety. I know a lot of people don't like to talk a lot about safety in race cars, and they say they're safer than street cars and stuff like that, but that's probably not true. About 10-15 people get killed every year on these short tracks around the United States. There's around 800 racetracks in the United States, and around 600 of them tracks are dirt, which means 3/4 of all the racetracks in the United States are dirt, and they are killing their share of the people. There's as many people get killed per number of racetracks as there is on asphalt. So you don't want to overlook safety, say, well, I'm in a short track car, and therefore safety is not a problem. An area you might want to look at is in the area of the front of the car here, putting some type of rhubar in here. The rhubar is named rhubar because they put them type of bars over the front of cars and stuff like that in places like Australia and stuff where they run into kangaroos and stuff. That's kind of, I guess, how it got its name, as a rhubar. But it's just a protection to keep anything from outside the car coming into the driver's compartment. We very seldom ever run a windshield on dirt because of the mud and the dust and the dirt and stuff like that, so we need some type of rhubar, some type of protection, and normally a little screen's not good enough. That'll keep the mud out, but if a rock or somebody's drive shaft or something comes off their race car, it could come in and do some pretty vital damage, so we need some type of rhubar. What I've seen some people do lately is find some old shopping carts. If you find an old shopping cart and use that of an end out of the old shopping cart, that makes very good rhubars, and you can weld it right in. It's steel, and it welds right into the top of the roll cage and to the cross member on the roll cage there, and gives you real good protection from something coming outside, and still gives you good visibility. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is a fire bottle in the race car. A halon type bottle, a 5-pound bottle that goes down here that the driver can hit like this. It's got a little pin in it that floods the driver's compartment in case of a fire. It gives you just a few seconds to get out of the race car, and it's probably a good idea. If I didn't have a good halon bottle, they're in the cost area of around $125. Then I'd probably go to Kmart or someplace like that and get me a little snap-in type bottle, something I could use in the car for a small fire that could help you a little bit. They're not near as good as these good halon $125 bottles, but they're a lot better than that. So a hobby car, at least get yourself a small fire bottle from your local supply house, a 2-pound dry chemical fire bottle. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is belts. In this car, if you'll unbuckle here, we've got 3-inch Simpson belts. They're 3 inches wide. They come over the shoulders. They give your shoulder a good area to spread the load out in case of a crash. The little tiny ones can do some damage to your shoulder and stuff like that. So, and these are a lot stronger, being 3 inches wide. I also like 3-inch lap belts, and a 2-inch submarine strap, which seems to be good. It's to keep you from going down under the seat. Okay, what you want to do on the straps that come across your waist is to put them in at about a 45-degree angle. Don't put them across your stomach, and don't put them across your legs. Bring them in at about 45 degrees. Hook your lap belts, the ones that come across your lap, to the roll cage and not to the floor of the race car. If the roll cage gets separated, you would like for your seat and all your belts to be hooked to the roll cage so you'll go with the roll cage. You don't want the car to move over and you sit there and let the roll cage do some damage to your body. So make sure that you belt your seat to the roll cage and all your belts to the roll cage so that any separation means that you stay. The next thing we want to talk about will be fire suits. I believe in fire suits in any type of race car, much less in short track dirt cars. A lot of them are running alcohol. They're running at least 5, 10, 15 gallons of fuel, which is a lot of burn. It's going to give you, a fire suit's going to give you a few seconds to get out of the race car. You can't stand in the fire because you got a fire suit on. But it'll give you a little time to keep from getting burnt. I like the type that he's got here. It's a 2-ply. It has a double, if you'll unsnap it, it has a double layer, 2 pieces of material here. It has an inner liner and an outer liner. It's called a 2-piece suit. These are costing the area of $200, $250. You can get the 1-piece suits, but they require that you run underwear if you run them to be fully safe. It's real important here that you have a snap or Velcro so that you can get it up around your neck and get it snapped. That's an area that could get burnt and it could be pretty vital. So keep your fire suit up around your neck, snapped with either Velcro or one of these snaps. The next thing I want to talk about is the helmet. For short track racing, if you'll give me your helmet, what you need is a full face helmet. This type of helmet's pretty good. This is a Pyrotech helmet. It's got the visor that flips up. You can also put your tear-offs on it. Putting tear-offs on it so that you'll be able to reach and pull it off during the race as you get mud on your visor is a real good idea. Now, what I found on running tear-offs is that if you'll take your tear-off and put every other one the opposite direction and fold them back, that way you'll pull from one this time, the next time you'll pull the next side, the next time you'll pull the other side. That way you don't reach up and pull 5 of them off at once and end up 3 laps in the race with no visor, with no tear-offs on top of your visor. Also, I recommend that you take a wet rag in the race car with you. In case this does happen, that you pull one off and maybe 2 or 3 of your tear-offs come off at once and all of a sudden you've got nothing, you're running second in the race and you've got to keep trying to wipe it with your hand. If you put a rag in alongside you, fire suit between you and the seat, then you could use that rag to go up and clean the thing every once in a while if you had to, if your tear-offs are gone. Even under your full face helmet, you probably need a pair of goggles. These little goggles like this seem to do a good job, and they will allow at the last lap or something to flip your visor if you can't see anything, and you'll still have some eye protection. Eyes are a pretty vital part of your racing career, so I'd spend a little extra time protecting them. Do not run the open face type helmet like this is. Not when dirt. A rock, anything could come up and hit you in the face and take a gouge out of your face or something like that. That'd be better than nothing, but the full face helmet is only about $20 or $30 more, and it'll do a better job for you. I want to show you on this one how you decide a fit on a helmet. I had one of the manufacturers tell me one time that 50% of the people in race cars had on the wrong size helmet, and that them people had literally no chance of winning a race. And I asked him, I said, how can this be? The helmet's too loose, you can knock your brains around, or why can't you win a race? And he said the person that doesn't know their head size and have the right size helmet on don't have their stagger right, their air pressure right. So what he was doing is being very facetious, saying if you don't pay attention to detail on things like helmet and fire suit and stuff, then you're probably not going to have the car right. So you are probably racing with half the people out there that didn't get their air pressures right, that didn't get their stagger right, and they probably literally do have no chance of winning the race. But I don't recommend this type of helmet for dirt racing, but I'll show you how to decide a fit with this type of helmet where you can see it. Now what you want to do is you want to put the helmet on, and it shouldn't hurt. Nowhere around it shouldn't hurt your ears. It shouldn't be squeezing you. You'll want to tighten it up real tight. Now some of the racing associations require if you have a beard that you wear a face sock, which just has the little eyes in it in case you had a fire. They say a beard can burn you. But what you want to do with this helmet is before you buckle it up, slide it on. It shouldn't hurt, and you should be able to shake your head very hard and the helmet not come around and close over one of your eyes. If it goes over one of your eyes, it's too loose. If it hurts, it's too tight. Buckle it up. Make sure that you can't pull it off this way, because that could happen in a race car. So check your helmet, make sure it's the right size for you. It might not be the same size as maybe the hat that you've been wearing or you think is the right size. They make them in quite a few different sizes. So make sure you got the right size helmet on, and make sure it won't come off in a crash or come over one of your eyes in a crash. Goggles and tear-offs a necessity on dirt. Okay, let's talk about the padding in the car. This car has got padding in these areas here around the driver's head and around his arms and legs, so that if it gets hit in the side, his leg won't go over and hit the roll cage, which is steel, and break your ankle, bust your head, bust a helmet or something like that. So we put some padding in here, some high-impact Zorbathane padding that you can buy in 2 or 3 different places. It's not real expensive. 20 feet will do the whole car, because you just need around the driver's head, in this area, anywhere his head could hit, anywhere an arm could hit, or anywhere a leg could hit. You'll want the Zorbathane padding over and tape it on to make sure it don't get away on As far as a window net in dirt cars, I want to say probably half of them run a window net. This car does not have a window net, but if it did have a window net, if I was going to race it, it would have it. This is a training car. You need to have the window net hook at the top and not at the bottom. So make it solid at the bottom and snap at the top so that you can drop it and get out of the car in an emergency. If you have it where it hooks solid at the top and snaps at the bottom, if you go to put the window net out, sometimes you can go out and it'll fall back and hang you up in the car, and it'll just keep falling back on you. So the only time the window net should be hooked on the bottom would be if the car was upside down. And the stock cars don't get upside down too often, so your window net for one of these type of cars should preferably be snapped at the top and mounted solid at the bottom and close the area. What it's to do is keep your arm from coming out and hitting the wall, your head from coming out, another car from getting in or maybe getting your arm or tearing an arm off or something like that. So a window net is a good idea when you're out there racing where somebody could get up in the window on you and hurt you pretty bad. The next thing we want to talk about is the steering wheel in the race car. You need to stay away from a type of steering wheel that has holes in it or something that your hand or finger could get in a crash and break a thumb, or slap your thumb back against your wrist and break your wrist or something in that area. A 3 or 4 spoke wheel is pretty good. Try to drive as much as you can with your fingers alongside the steering wheel. You don't want to wrap them around here. If you get in a bump or somebody hits one of your wheels, it could actually break your thumb just by having it around there when it turns. So when I get in traffic, especially, I run my thumbs alongside the steering wheel. Okay, this steering wheel is a dipped wheel. It has the little knobs around it. I recommend gloves. I didn't show them here, but I recommend gloves. With gloves, you can hold this even if you get a little oil on your hands or on your gloves. These little knobs will keep your fingers from sliding and keep from burning your hands, and when the wheel's doing this and the ruts and stuff like that, keep from sawing your hands and leaving some blisters after the race. This has a snap-on that goes in there and locks, and then you can't get it back out. You know it's locked. Then you push the button, it releases it and takes it off. I think this is a pretty safe steering wheel. What it allows you to do is if the driver's injured, it lets you take the steering wheel off so you can bring the driver out if he had a back injury or something like that. And I think it's pretty safe as long as you don't forget to put the button in and make sure that this thing is released, that these little balls are released in here where they go in, and make sure it's all the way down on the wheel. There's been a lot of people pull the wheels off, but most of the time it's because the pin wasn't in or wasn't in good. I like to put a little strap and have it here in front of the driver so there's no way he can miss it. And I also tell the driver and myself that you never put it on the car unless you're going to put the pin in. Don't just set it on there just to drive the car at 5 feet. If you're going to put it on there, put the pin in. If you're not going to put it on there, get the steering wheel off so that somebody don't slide in behind you. Go to drive it even up on the trailer. I've seen guys hurt their wrists and tear up a car putting them up on the trailer. They drive it up on the trailer and the steering wheel comes off and it'll run up over the fender on the trailer or something, jerk the wheel and break their wrist or tear up the front end, maybe knock the radiator out or something like that. So make sure that thing's in, no matter, even just moving it around the shop. Just get in the practice of never putting it on unless the pin's in and it's locked. This particular car here has a brake balance system in it. I don't believe in moving the pedals around. Before we get out on the racetrack, I'll talk about that when we get on the racetrack, but I like to keep the brake pedal where it belongs, the clutch pedal where it belongs, and the throttle where it belongs. I don't like moving the pedals around to make myself more comfortable. I know that the brake pedal is going to be over a little closer to the gas pedal, and my feet are not going to be as far apart as I would really like, but at least in emergency, I'm going to push the right pedal. I'm not going to push the clutch instead of the brake, and that's what happens when you swap these cylinders around sometimes. So try to stay away from that in a race car. Make sure you've got good rubber pads on your pedals so that your feet don't slip when they get wet and muddy. You come off the dirt and you get in a race car and you got some mud on your shoes. You don't want them to slip off the pedals or something, brake pedal or throttle pedal out on the racetrack. So make sure you get good rubber. And what I do with them is I snap them on there and then I drill a hole in and put a rivet in it and pop rivet it to make sure that the rubber pad is not going to come off. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is we'll talk a little bit about psychology on the racetrack. I think that's real important, and we'll spend a little bit of time on psychology. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is a little bit about the psychology of auto racing. A lot of people don't like to admit there's psychology in it, but I like to think about a half of it's psychology of establishing yourself as a winner, coming in prepared, coming in with the car painted. Let your competitors know that you came there to win the race. You didn't come there just to run in the back or just to cruise around the racetrack. The way you're going to do that is the way you conduct yourself at the driver's meeting, the way you conduct yourself around the officials, the way your car's prepared, the way you bring it to the racetrack, just the way you conduct yourself, the psychology of how you conduct yourself. What you've got to do is you've got to find out what type of officials you have in the racetrack. You don't go in and talk about the official's mother, then expect him to come call you when it's time to line up for the race. You don't want to really make friends with these guys and get it where it indicates as though you're one of their little boys. But you've got to demand their respect, and to get that respect, you've got to give them respect. Realize that most officials are working for a few dollars a night, $20 to $50 a night or something like that. Most of them have outside jobs. They don't understand race cars as well as you do. They don't understand how hard you work on a race car to get prepared for that race. So they just soon take the race away from you as not. They don't realize how hard you work to get into that race. So by you doing something wrong on the racetrack, if this guy doesn't like you, there's a good chance that they'll black flag you. They'll call up the tower and they'll say, you know, this guy's in the wrong position. And any time that you've done something wrong, they're definitely going to notice it if they don't like you. Which also, if they do like you, this doesn't mean they're going to do you a favor, but it also means they won't work against you on a restart or something like that. They won't let somebody jump you and then let the start go down that way. So if you buy the flagman a beer, it's not to get him to do something for you. It's to make sure he don't do something against you. So like I say, you don't want to be talking about these guys' mothers. You don't want to treat them with real low respect. Obviously, like I say, they don't work on race cars. They don't have the money to put into these things. Most of these guys are lower dollar working employees. They're not the promoters or the people that get the bigger money at the racetrack. They're the guys that work for just a salary every week, come in for $40, $50 and give up their Saturday night just to be around race cars. I realize also that these guys, probably one of them's their hero out there. You'd like to be that guy. You'd like for him to have enough respect for you that if there's a problem, they come running to you. If your car has got a flat tire, that they don't start the race again until you're prepared to go back on the racetrack. If they don't like you, if you have a flat tire and you're in the pits, they're going to start the race the next lap if they can, because they want to keep you in the pits because they don't particularly like you. So you want to try to make some friends with these officials without going overboard. Watch your flagman. Go out and study this flagman before the race. There's a lot of psychology to this. We used to have a flagman on the West Coast that smoked, and he kept his cigarettes in his upper pocket. And any time that he was going to drop the green flag, you could watch his hand go up to protect the cigarettes, so when he jumped, that his cigarettes didn't fly out of his pocket. So you didn't really watch his green flag hand, you watched his left hand. And if you knew that, then you could beat him on the restart. Any time that he was going to phony the start and make like he was going to throw it but not throw it, he'd never move his left hand. So if he never moved his left hand, you didn't try to jump anybody, you just stayed in line, you acted your nice, calm self. But the minute you seen his hand go up to his cigarette pack, so it wouldn't come out when he jumped, you knew that this is the lap that he was going to drop the green, so you'd go ahead and make your moves, get the car geared up into second gear or third gear and get you ready for your restart because you knew it was getting ready to come. So there's a lot of importance in psychology on the racetrack to get your crew to work on the race car. All you got to do is tell them that you're going to do something that's illegal. Everybody wants to come to your racetrack and help you put a nitrous system in the car. But very few people want to come around and help you change tires when you need some tire changers. So there's a lot of psychology in getting a good crew together, get them in uniforms, make them work toward your end. It's something that's learned. You got to treat them with respect. It doesn't hurt to buy their dinner once in a while to show them that you do appreciate the work that they put in on the race car during the week. The psychology and what I like to call the pecking order. I think this is real important. Maybe one of the most important things at the racetrack is you establish yourself in the pecking order where you're going to belong. I've got a little ranch, and my animals know which animal is stronger than the next animal. And what you've got to do is do that thing on a racetrack. You know that this guy comes in here with his high-dollar motor, his high-dollar car, his crew looking good and everything else, that he's going to be a front runner. So automatically, when he's running with you, you give him a little respect, you give him a little more room than you would somebody that you have no respect for, and you could care less what he's going to do on the racetrack. So you establish yourself by coming out totally prepared and by letting the other guys know at the driver's meeting and your talks with them around the pits and stuff like that, that you're very serious about your racing. And then you go out there and you run in the front. If you're not running in the front, you're having a lot of trouble this night, sometimes it's better to pull out than it is to run last. There's $25 or $30 difference, and you might as well just pull out of the race if you've got big problems. That way you don't establish yourself as a guy that's out there just cruising in the back of the race. If you give a guy, you've heard the thing, you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. If you race with somebody, this happened to me last year. I had a race, a heat race pretty well covered, and I decided to race with the guy to kind of put on a show for the spectators, even though I had him covered, and I ended up winning the race. But during this heat race, I let the guy know that he could race with me, or at least he thought he could race with me. Now it comes feature time, and this guy wants to race with me again. I want to get out with the lead pack and get gone, but this guy's trying to get by me because he had raced with me in the heat race and raced all around me and everything else, ended up winning the race. But he established himself as in the pecking order with me, which I should have just buried him. Just run off from him, hid from him. Then when the feature come, he would have never even tried to run with me. Now, anytime I go to the racetrack and I try to pass this guy on the racetrack, he sees it's me. He says, I can race with this guy. He'll speed up. He'll take it 3 laps to get by him instead of 1. So by establishing yourself as somebody that's not going to put up with nonsense, you're going to pass right away. That's real important. A real important situation on passing somebody on the racetrack is momentum. You don't want to come up behind them, pull in behind them, and then wait for an opening and then make a pass. You've got to come up behind this car with enough momentum, if you're going 5 or 10 miles an hour faster, and go right on by. So you've got to time this thing on what corner or what straightaway you're going to pass him, and use a little momentum. I found times that you've got to back off 3 or 4 car lengths so you can get this 5 or 10 miles an hour momentum so that you can run on by somebody. If you pull up into their groove and you get in their rhythm, then it makes it harder to pass them. It's hard to out-accelerate somebody if you both come off the turn together, but if you can come off the turn 10 miles an hour faster, then it's not too hard to get by them on the straightaway. So you've got to establish yourself as when you come there, you've got to go right on by. You can't sit and wait on them. Then it becomes harder and harder to pass the person. So I think psychology is important. You know, you might not have thought about it before, but you know just from your particular racetrack who is the fastest and who's not, and where that pecking order belongs. Whether this guy belongs in the front, if he belongs in the back, and he tries to run in the front, they'll run all over him, they'll run by him. They just show him no respect whatsoever because he's out of line. Also the leader, he can have a spark plug wire off and they'll still let him by because they're used to watching this guy win races and they know he's coming by. So even if he's running a little slower than normal, they look up, they see the car, they'll give him a little bit of extra room. So I think psychology is real important in a race car. Establishing your pecking order, come in as a professional, treat your other people as professionals, all your inspectors, all your officials, the owner, and then expect to be treated as a professional. I don't think you should put up with a lot of nonsense. You've got to establish yourself as the person that's come there to win, but you also shouldn't put out a lot of nonsense. So come in professional, use a lot of psychology on these people, use a lot of psychology on your employees, and I think you'll find out that your job in racing becomes a lot easier. What we're going to do now is get in the car and get a little orientation in the car on how to hold the wheel, what to do with your feet and things like that, and then we'll get out on the racetrack. Okay, what we're going to do now is take you out in my street car. It's a little Firebird and give you a little cockpit orientation. What you want to do with your hands is you want to put them at about 10 o'clock and about 3 or 4 o'clock on the steering wheel. That way, as you go into the turn, your hands will be across from each other, exit the turn, and then back up to straight again. You don't want to put both your hands over here, then when you get in the turn, they'll be crossed up. You don't want to put them over here so that they'll be crossed up in the middle of the turn. So about 10 o'clock and about 4 o'clock, you want to keep your left foot over the brake pedal, your right foot over the gas, so that we can get in a rhythm as we go around the racetrack. We'll go ahead and take a few laps here, and I'll show you a few things about the racetrack. Before you get onto the racetrack, you need to check the brakes. Make sure the car doesn't pull to the left, pull right, make sure you've got as much pedal as you think you've got. Make sure your brakes are going to do the job that you want to do. You're going to adjust your brakes to get the car to handle as you go around the racetrack. If you want the rear end to come out a little bit more on the entry, then use a little more rear brakes. If you want it not to come out as much, use a little more front brakes. As the track gets slicker and slicker and more like asphalt hard, then you want to go to more and more front brakes. This track here is a D shape. I'm going down the back straightaway on the open part of the D. Now, anytime you've got an open part of the D, that means you've got a closed part, the straightaway, the front square part of the D, and that's going to be a place that you're going to have to be really straight coming off the turn. So coming through 3, coming out of 4, the wall will actually close up on us. As the wall closes up on us, we've got to be straighter, and what I like to do is head for the flag stand. Come out here about a car width off the pole, accelerate as hard as you can down the straightaway. We want to do our braking while we're pretty much going straight. You can brake a little bit into the turn. That will help set the rear of the car, move the rear of the car out 10 or 15 degrees. Then you pick up the throttle. What you want to do is drive the rear of the car with the throttle and the front of the car with the steering wheel when the track is real wet. As the track gets drier and drier, start using more and more like asphalt, like you're driving down the highway, and start using your steering wheel to get the car around. But when the track's wet, you go into the turn, you use brakes. If you use enough rear brakes, that'll put the rear of the car out 10 or 15 degrees. Then you pick up the throttle and hold it at that 10 or 15 degrees and come off the racetrack, accelerate. And if you accelerate too hard, the rear end will be out too far. If you don't accelerate hard enough, it won't be out far enough. So you're looking for 10 to 15 degrees according to the track conditions. So brake while we're still going 90% straight. Enough rear brakes will move the rear end out. You pull the nose down and accelerate. You want all the forward momentum you can get. Anytime that the rear end is sliding out too much, more than is necessary to get the car to turn, then you're wasting speed. Okay, we're right up to the top of the racetrack and then right back in. Brakes, going into the turn while we're going straight. Pick up the throttle, accelerate off the turn, keep the rear end out just enough to give you all the forward momentum you can without the car coming around sideways. Okay, what we want to do is we want to enter the turn about a car width, maybe 2 car widths off the pole. At the center of the turn, even though we're in this drift, we want to be like a car width off the pole, and on the exit we want to be down on the bottom of the racetrack. It lets us have the whole straightaway to accelerate and let the car drift to the outside of the racetrack. So up a little bit high here, we want to enter from 2 to 3 car widths off the pole, down to 1 car width off the pole at about a 10 to 15 degree drift, pull the nose down tight, accelerate off the turn as hard as you can without the rear end coming around. Okay, we'll do one more lap like that. Brake while we're still going straight. Let that bring the rear end out, pull the nose down, and accelerate off the turn. Go ahead and use all the racetrack that you've got. Okay, now what we're going to do going into turn 3 and 4 here is I'm going to run in too low. I'm going to diamond the racetrack. Run in too low across the racetrack like this. The car will end up in the second groove, and the people will then be able to pass you on the way out because they've made their turn a little bit earlier than you did. So anytime you enter the turn too low, you'll end up in the second groove at the middle of the racetrack. So if you chop the racetrack off and you go in here, you either have to go real slow around the racetrack or you'll end up in the second groove. So you don't want to enter the turn too low. Anytime the car is loose, which means the rear end wants to come around on you, then you'll want to enter the turn lower. Anytime the rear end doesn't want to come around and the car pushes, then you'll want to enter higher like this. You'll maybe want to come up in here and then bring the nose down. If the car is loose and you do that, the car is going to want to back into the fence or back off the racetrack. So you'll enter a little bit higher, and don't be opposed to changing your groove according to the people around you, according to how your car is handling. Going a little bit higher if the car is pushing. Take all the turn out of it, bring the nose down, then you've got the rear end behind you, you can accelerate good and early. So the higher you enter the turn going in, the lower you'll be going out and the more forward bite you can have. Okay, down in too low, and we pick up the throttle, the car is going to end up in the second groove, and it's going to be hard to get the rear end around behind you at the proper angle to get lots of forward momentum off the turn. So don't be opposed to moving the car up a little bit if the car is pushing, down a little bit if the car is loose. You definitely don't want to go in the high groove if the car is loose because it'll stay up there and run real sideways, and you'll end up getting passed by everybody on the racetrack. So the right groove would be like 2 car widths off the pole, and as you enter, which is right in here, like 2 car widths off the pole, turn the nose down, 1 car width off the pole at a 15 to 20 degree angle, down to a half a car width off the pole, right on the pole, accelerate toward the flag stand, let the car have its head, try to get all the forward momentum you can out of the racetrack. Okay. Okay, now we're going to be going in off the racetrack, and what you want to do when you leave the racetrack is to get your arm out the window, give the signal to the people behind you that you're going to leave the racetrack. Be very professional about it. You don't want to just chop across the racetrack and cause an accident. You want to save your car, so stay down low the last lap before you're going to enter the pits. Get your arm out the window or get some signal to the people behind you that you intend to leave the racetrack, and then make your exit off the racetrack. What we're going to do now is go into the pits, and we'll get on the blackboard, and I'll show you this D-shaped racetrack and the type of groove you'll have to run with different shape and different track conditions. Okay, in this part of the video, I want to talk a little bit about reading the racetrack. What you've got to do is go out to the racetrack maybe the week before you're going to race and watch the other cars and see what kind of where they, the groove that they use to get around the racetrack, where they're low, where they're high, the angles and stuff they're using. There's basically 3 types of racetracks you're going to go to. You're going to go to a D-shaped racetrack, which is this one is, that it's got a straightaway here, but on the back it's just round. It's like a D laying on its side. Anytime you've got a D-shaped racetrack, when you come to the outer part of the D, the swinging part of the D, you're going to have what we call an opening turn. You're going to be able to get in the throttle much earlier than you can go on to the closing part of this. So that's what they call a closing turn. Looks like when you come off this turn, if you're not just at the right angle, somebody slams the door on you, and then you'll have trouble in this area right here. But on an opening racetrack, on the open part of the D, nobody will have trouble. So you can do most of your passing probably over here where somebody makes a mistake and you're able to get under them. Here, everybody can get on the throttle, and the track is so forgiving that it opens up that nobody makes a mistake, and it's pretty hard to pass. Okay, so you're going to be on the throttle early on the open part of the D and late on the closed part of the D, both times at the bottom of the racetrack. Okay, the next type of racetrack you'll see will be something like an egg shape. It'll be open and bigger on one end and smaller on the other end. Okay, on the open end, the big end of the racetrack, the wall is going to close up on you here because it's going to start coming down the straightaway and then start heading for the small end of the egg. So the wall closes on you, so you'll have to get on the throttle later on the open end of the egg than you do on the closed end of the egg. So if your track is littler on one end than it is the other end, on the track, the end that's the smallest, you'll be picking up the throttle a little bit earlier, and the car will get off the racetrack. Now, as far as banking is concerned, from the driver's standpoint, the higher the banking is, normally, the track is a lot wetter on the bottom, a lot more tacky, and late in the race, that's where you're going to get a better bite. If you've got a flat track, a lot of times you'll get as much bite on the second or third groove as you do right on the bottom. But anytime you go to a real high bank racetrack, anything 10 or 15 degrees, where the water runs down and then soaks in more on the bottom of the racetrack than it does the top, you can expect that late in the race, the car is going to get real fast right around the bottom of the racetrack. A day race, let's say you get the car handling really good, you find a real nice groove in the racetrack in the day, and you come back and race that same racetrack on a night race later in the season where most of the races are at night, you're going to find out that the car pushes. So anytime you go from a day race to a night race, open up the stagger. Anytime you're going to run in the daytime, you want to close up the stagger, and close up the stagger, go from a higher point on the racetrack at night from a lower point on the racetrack in the daytime, realizing that the track conditions are going to change like that. That anytime that you enter the turn low, that's for a car that's loose. Anytime that you enter the turn high, that's for a car that's pushing. If a car is loose and you enter the track from that high and you try to turn it down, you're going to end up backed into the fence here off the racetrack. Same thing, if the car is pushing real bad and you try to drive in real low, you'll end up here. It's going to make the car real hard to turn. So anytime the car is pushing, you enter from higher. Anytime the car is loose, you enter from lower. That's basic the way you're going to drive the track for the way the car handles. When the flag comes down, that's the car you got to drive. So if it's a little loose or a little pushy, don't be opposed to changing your line on the entry. Realize if you want the rear end to come out so that you can have a good angle off the turn, you need the rear end of the car out a little bit. You sometimes need a little more rear brake to get the car out. So put a little more rear brake on the car when the track is wet, or when it's heavy and it is real sticky, or real late night race where it stays cool, the track stays under real gummy conditions, then you're going to need a lot more rear brake. As the track gets dry slick or a day race, you're going to need more front brakes and less stagger. So from the driver's standpoint, realize that the third type of racetrack is going to be the same on both ends. That's what we'd always like to have, but it's not normally going to be that way. Normally you're either going to have an egg-shaped racetrack or a D-shaped racetrack. If it's the same on both ends, then obviously you want to hit the bottom of the racetrack here on both ends and enter at the same place on both ends. You need to practice in the second groove, the third groove for passing. You need to be able to take the car up high, cut it down low. When you're out there practicing, you want to try different lines. The best way to find the proper line and to go is where the car goes the fastest under control. That's what we call the groove. So you want to get out there behind the fastest cars out there, see where they run. If your car handles like their car, then you should be able to run pretty close to their groove, but don't be opposed to move it up a car width or down a half a car width to make your car go as fast as it'll go. And so that groove sometimes is a little bit different than the other people's groove on the racetrack, and you would like it to be a little different because that's the only way you're going to be able to pass. If you've got the same groove they've got and they out-qualify you, it's going to be pretty hard to get by. So sometimes you might want to make it so that the car is a little tighter on one end than the other end or something like that, so that you know that everybody on this end of the racetrack runs up the racetrack, and that's where you want to be on the bottom. So you might want to change the way the car handles or the way you drive so that you can be at a different place than they're at. That's the only way you're going to make the pass. A lot of times on a track like this, it's a one-groove racetrack in a day race or early evening, but if the track has been wet really good during the week, it's been plowed and stuff, it's a 2 or 3 groove racetrack. So anytime that it's real dry slick, that doesn't have a lot of moisture in it, it becomes a one-lane racetrack. If you go out to pass somebody, most of the time you'll end up going backwards instead of forward. Remember that also this is anytime that you got a high bank racetrack like this, I don't consider it high, it's 15 degrees, but it's higher than a lot of racetracks, that it's going to be tacky around the bottom, and the car's going to run faster around the bottom of the racetrack. So if you can get it to work down there and get your stagger right and your brake balance right, and you can keep it around the bottom of the racetrack, even though you're a little bit crossed up, you want to be down on the bottom of the racetrack, you'll find that it's a lot faster. Later in the evening, you'll be able to go under people instead of around them. The second groove doesn't get fast, the bottom groove gets fast on a high bank racetrack. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to go out and follow the race car around using my Firebird again, and having one of my instructors in the school, Jim, take the car around and show you there's some different grooves, and I'll get in behind him. I'll have to run a little bit, he'll have to run a little bit slow, not me, he'll have to run a little bit slow down the straightaway so I can catch him so that we can be right behind him in the turn. So he'll be running like half speed down the straightaway, but he'll take it into full speed into the turns and get the car crossed up and show you what angles and stuff are good and bad with the car. When we're talking about this 10 or 15 degrees, I'll show you kind of what that angle is. And we'll talk about it as we're going around the racetrack. So why don't we do that next? Training cars. And what we're going to do is run a couple of laps in the right place and then 3 or 4 laps in the wrong places on the racetrack, and it'll show you how the car reacts as you go around the racetrack, and don't run it in the right line. Okay, this is his warm-up lap. So this time he's just driving around the racetrack. Now he's not going to be at full speed down the straightaway, but he's going to have to go fast enough into the turns to be able to get the rear end of the car out to get a good angle off the turn. Okay, that's a real good angle off the turn. He comes around across the bottom of the racetrack and then lets it head for the flag stand. Okay, we'll try to get out of his groove a little bit here. He's entering here about 3 car widths. He's down to 2. Now he's going to pick up the throttle and bring the rear end out about 15 degrees and bring the car across the bottom of the racetrack in a small drift. Okay, now he's going to back off and let us catch him again. Okay, let's do that one more time. He's going to bring it in here in the right place, going to pick up the throttle to get the rear end out. Or he was a little too high and a little bobble there. So that wouldn't have run a real good lap. It's bothering him a little bit trying to run too slow down the straightaway. Okay, anytime you run in low like he's doing right now, then the car will end up in the second groove where it is right there, and you'll have to turn it again. So that's what happens when you enter the turn too low. Okay, let's do that a couple more times. Okay, anytime that he cuts down too low in the middle of the turn, he gets right close to the bottom of the racetrack like he is right there, and the car is not cocked, and when he picks up the throttle, he ends up in the second groove, and then he's fighting the front end of the car to bring the car back down into the right groove. So you'll end up getting passed when you do that. So you don't want to run into the car into the turn too low like that, because like I say, it'll end up in the second groove in the middle of the turn. Okay, now he's entering the turn a little too high. He's going to do that for us a couple of laps, and see that it makes it real easy to go under him going in. Anytime you enter high, though, you can see how fast he is coming out. The higher you go into the turn, the lower you'll come out of the turn and the faster you'll be. But you leave an opening then for somebody to run right under you. Anytime he goes up that high, I can run right under him here, even in a street car. Okay, now what he's going to do is pick up the throttle and bring the car down across the bottom of the racetrack, and you'll see you have a lot more forward momentum when you do it that way. He's just pulling away. Well, you can see what happens when you get the rear end way up in the loose stuff. The car wants to come around. You've got to then back off the throttle. Okay, he's up too high. Now if he picks up the throttle up here, the car is going to want to be squirrely. It's up in the sand and dirt and stuff where you really can't get a good bite around the racetrack, and we're at the best place on the racetrack right now. Okay, so entering too low will make the car run up the racetrack in the middle of the turn. Entering the car too high like he's doing right now, and then trying to bring the car low, you'll be fast off the turn, but you'll be up in the dust and stuff like that, and you're not going to get as good a forward traction as you'd like, and you're going to bobble it on the exit. You want to become straight off the turn. You don't want to be bobbling it like that. Okay, he's in the right place. Now he needs to bring the nose down, just like that. Now pick up the throttle, pick up the throttle. You see there's very little dust because he's in the groove on the racetrack. He's in the place where we've packed the racetrack, which will give you lots of forward momentum. So you don't want to get up there and spin your tires in the sand or the loose part of the racetrack on a day like today. They'll come out and wet the racetrack, but it's still not going to be any better than just spinning your tires going around the racetrack. So anytime that they've wet the racetrack just to keep the dust down for the spectators' benefit, you don't want to still get out of the groove, because there's still only one good hard place that the tires will get a hold of the racetrack and gum me. And that'll normally be on the bottom of the racetrack, especially on a high bank racetrack like this. So what we're going to do is enter low if the car is loose, enter high if the car is pushing. We want to enter about the second or third groove. We want to come off on the low groove as we come off the racetrack. You can see if they run the wrong groove. I didn't have radio contact with him, so I couldn't tell him what to do any particular lap, but I just told him to go out and run some right and some wrong, and you can see that when he tried to throttle it and run the car up the racetrack and turn it, that the car did not have the forward momentum. The driver spent too much of his time trying to gather up the race car and not enough time letting that car accelerate off the turn. It ought to be so smooth that he never moves into the high groove and never moves right in on the bottom of the racetrack, that it stays in a nice wide on the entry, low on the exit lap, very smooth under braking, very smooth under acceleration. You've seen that the 2 or 3 times it accelerated too hard, the rear end wanted to come around and wanted to throw up a lot of dust and dirt, and that meant he's not getting forward momentum. The people in the grandstands might think he's going fast because he's throwing a lot of dirt, but he's not. I mean, you'd be throwing a lot of mud over the wall, but you're not really getting any forward traction. So you want to come as straight off the turn as possible without the rear end coming around. There's 2 or 3 times that he was too far around. The rest of the times he was pretty right. Well, what we'll do now is we'll get up on the flag stand and watch the car from the flag stand, and maybe we'll be able to see just a little bit better. Okay, what we're doing now is we're going to let Jim take the car out, make a few laps, and I'll point out a few things that he's doing on the racetrack. I've had him to do a couple things right and a couple things wrong, so you'll see it. Okay, he's on the warm-up lap. Okay, now he wants to bring the car down across the bottom of the racetrack, let the rear end out a little bit, and let it come right onto the flag stand. Okay, you want to enter, brake at that point, pick up the throttle enough to bring the rear end out like you did right there. Bring the rear end, the nose across the bottom of the racetrack, let the car have its head on the top part of the D. He wants to let all the way off on the throttle, on the brakes, pull the rear end around with the throttle. He's driving the rear end with the throttle, bringing the car off the turn and right up to the flag stand. Okay, he run down across the bottom of the racetrack. That makes the car run up a little bit in the turn, and it makes him have to crank the car twice on the way around the turn. So anytime you enter the turn low, like he's doing right there, the car will end up in the second groove, where it is right there. And then it's hard to get the nose back down there where the black part of the racetrack is at, and he's up in the dust. Okay, we'll do that one more lap. Cut it down too soon. Then try to pick the throttle up and bring it around. He'll end up in the second groove there and can't get the nose to come down the way he wants. And then he'll lose a lot of his forward traction. Okay, running in too low. Then the car ends up too high. It's real pronounced there. And then you've got to wait, back off the throttle and pick it up to get the car back down in the groove. Okay, now what he's going to do is enter the turn too high. You can see all the dust and stuff is blowing up there, and then he's going to chop the car down across the racetrack, and what he's going to end up doing is getting past going in, because if you enter that high, you're not going to be real fast from that point on the racetrack until you can get the nose down at that point. So what we've done is wasted a full second there by going in a little too high. Sometimes that's the groove you got to run, is high again there, to be able to get around somebody, then cut the nose back down, and then get it back online to get your forward momentum. So if you are going to get high going in, you got to come down nice and low on the exit to be able to make up for it. All right, in a little low, then the car comes up high. He has to spend his time gathering the car up, and then he'll lose that time on the straightaway. Okay, now he's back down in the groove where he ought to be. Pick up the throttle at that point. Bring the nose down low. Let the car have its head. He's coming straight as much forward by, you know he's on the racetrack right when there's no dust. That's good. Now bring the nose down. That's good. He didn't quite hold the rear end out long enough, but it was real good. Real good. He's right down in the black part, coming off the turn good. Now we want to enter there about three widths off the pole. Pick up enough throttle to hold the rear end out. Bring the nose tight across the racetrack. Let the car have its head. You know he's on the right part of the racetrack because there's not a lot of dirt and stuff flying up behind the racetrack. There's a pretty good racetrack down there on the bottom. All right, that's a good line. Pick up the throttle right there. Keep the car in about a 10-degree drift. Now, the muddier the racetrack is, the higher angle you're going to have going around the racetrack. If the track's real muddy, you've got to have a real high angle of drift with the back of the race car. You've got to have it out a lot further than if the track is real dry slick. If the track is real dry slick, which the track is getting into that condition right now, then you need to run more like you're going to run asphalt. Quit trying to hang the rear end out if it's not really necessary. Remember that anytime the rear end's out, the car is sliding sideways. You do not have as much forward momentum as you do when the car is coming straight off the turn. So as quick as the track condition will allow it, we'd like to get the car straight off the turn so we can have lots of forward acceleration. We've got one of our people out here in this 01 car, the white car, it's under actual racing conditions. What we're doing is during the heat race, we're going to show you the proper line around the racetrack. And you see the 15 to 20 degrees cock we're talking about in the line that he's taking off the racetrack. Letting off at this point, cocking the rear end out about 15 degrees, holding the rear end out, coming low across the bottom of the racetrack, and then letting it have its head and go onto the wall under full power. Letting off about here, backing the car into the turn, get the 15 degrees that we need coming off the bottom of the racetrack, let the car come onto the wall. Then we're going to enter a little bit higher there, hold the nose down, pick the throttle up, about a 15-degree cock in the car, and on down the straightaway. Okay, what we're going to do is run about 4 or 5 more laps here, showing you the proper line and the proper angle of the car. Now the track conditions are a little muddy. They will get dry slick later, but a little heavy right now, which you got to run the car out just a little bit, just like he's doing. So he's running a real good line right now. Okay, he's a little bit high. There you go, brought it down across the racetrack, and that's good. He got a little bit high in the middle of the turn. Okay, we'll watch him now as he goes to attempt the fastest 20 car. Keeps his momentum up, and then runs right by him. Doesn't wait and fall in behind him. He goes right on by just as quick as he can. You've got to keep your momentum up to be able to pass these cars. Okay, he's running a real good line right there. End of the turn, back it up, back under power, let the car have its head, 15-degree angle, and then off the turn. You want the car as cocked as you have to get the car to turn without trying to run it sideways. You don't want to run the car any more sideways than you absolutely have to. Anytime you're running sideways, you're not going forward. But you've got to take the car and put it at that angle to be able to get off the turn when it's wet like this. So anytime you've got a real wet condition, you're going to have to run a little more crooked. Some of the more limited cars as they go around the racetrack and give you some ins and outs. So what we're doing is looking down off the flag stand as the cars come off turn 4. The red car here obviously is way too high on the racetrack. The blue and red one is looking real good. These cars, a couple of them have got the right cock, a couple of them don't come up. That car looks real good right there, 16. Okay, the car in the front there has got the good line. The car in the back is way too high and not getting enough forward traction. He's spinning up there in the loose stuff. Okay, we have 2 cars here. Well, they're bobbling a little bit, but they're looking a little good after they straighten out. Okay, all of them look real good. That's a real good line off there for a limited car. These guys have very limited tires, and it's hard to really make the car act as good as you want with real limited tires. All these looking good. The last one, next to the last one, was way too high, and he lost a lot of its forward momentum. The last one and this one's a little too high, and he's losing his forward momentum. That car there is right about in the right place. Now, this car is running a little loose in the middle of the turn, but he looks real good coming out. He didn't let it drift near close enough to the wall. You need to let the car go all the way to the wall so you'll have a better angle in the next turn. The third car back is way too high, losing all of its forward momentum. You can't get forward momentum if you got your wheels way up there in that stuff. The guy who's across the bottom are the one that's doing it right there. You can see the red car got passed because he was running a little bit high. This car is a little bit high right here. He needs to get down a little bit. He's good by the time he gets to the flag stand, but off the turn he's so high, he's got to cock the car so much that he doesn't get a lot of forward traction. A $100,000 truck hauling a $200 race car. It's pretty neat, though, I guess, if you got enough money to haul one like that. Looks like you do a little better job on the car. And watch some of the limited cars as they go into turn 1. You can see that red car is way too high on the entry. The other guys just pull away from him. That car there is about the right place going in. He cocks it about 15 degrees and then swings off the turn, letting the car have its head. Well, watch him again there going into turn 1. Okay, that red car was down this time, and he all got a lot better bite, and the white one behind him looks real good. You want to go back down in there about 3 car widths off the pole, cock the car right about at the pit entrance there, set it about 15 degrees, hold it under power, hold the rear end out with the throttle, steer the nose down with the steering wheel. Okay, the car in the lead there done it exactly right. The other ones went in too low, and they pushed up, and you can watch him pull away from them. Okay, we'll watch him going into turn 1 one more lap here. Now watch that lead car. He's going in at just about the right angle. The white one, the second one went in a little low, and therefore pushed up, and you can watch the other one pull away. Okay, the red one went in a lot better, and the other one went in almost through straight. That's a pretty good line right there. He's holding about a 15-degree angle with the throttle, the nose of the steering, and he's out. Okay, the rear car was a little too high. The car was a little loose going into the turn. The other 2 cars look real good. That one looks real good there. This car is entering way too low, and he's got to slow down, and you'll watch the yellow car that just close right up on him because of his angle. Racing this is a lot of angle. That's a good line right there. That was a good line. He cocked it a little too soon, then it straightened out on him, and then he's got to cock it again, and he'll end up losing a few tenths of a second. Okay, what we're doing here now is we're going to be looking down into turn 1 on the last hot lap session here. And I want to show you some angles. You see what I'm talking about, that a car can only be like a half of a car width off or 5 degrees off on his angle into the turn, and he can be way off. It can end up costing him 1 or 2 tenths of a second. You're filming? So we're going to watch these late models going into the turn here. And see, the angle that they go in is all important. Now that second car pushed up a little bit. He ran it because he ran it a little bit too low. Okay, that one entered just a little high. The white one is more right. Now he cocks the car and takes it on out of the turn. So entering the turn too low makes the car push. Now both of these are entering right about at the right place. They set the car with the throttle, hold it, and then power on off the turn. But just a difference of 1 or 2 car widths. Like the one on the outside being too high now, he cannot get the nose down, he stays too high. Okay, then we're just about perfect. That's the angle you're looking at when you're going around the racetrack. You want to take it in 3 or 4 car widths off the pole, cock it, let it set, and going out. Okay, this car went in too low, run up the racetrack. A prime example of entering the turn too low. Okay, that entered too low, and you see all the trouble he got into. The second car was better, much better. Okay, he's a little high there, and then he can't get the nose down, he can't get any forward traction. That one's about right. That one's a little high. The 33 was right, the white one. And that car is pretty right. So what we're looking at is to try to get in at the proper angle and get out at the proper angle. Out of turn 4, the sun is off a little bit at our, but there's some real good angles on the cars coming up. That was a little wide. The car's a little loose, and he couldn't hold the rear end where he wanted it. He wanted to come back around, so therefore he wasn't getting any forward traction. Okay, what we're going to do is go back to the blackboard here and talk a little bit about this passing. I think the key to passing on a dirt track is momentum. You've got to be able to not have to slow down, fall into their groove, run the line that they run. Realize that any time that you come in high, that you'll come out low on the racetrack. So if the person you're attempting to pass is coming in the middle of the turn or on the bottom, then you've got to move up. If they come in on the bottom, they're going to end up here. While you're going this direction, they're going to be going this direction. Kicking the car out is going to leave them up here. With you with a better groove, you'll be able to put your car underneath them and then leave them in the second groove on the exit. So anytime the person is protecting the lead by running in real low on the bottom, you've got to move out a little bit, get your momentum up, and then drive under them on the exit. Anytime that they're running up high, then what you've got to do then is try to get in a little bit lower and force them to stay a little bit higher and be able to pass them on the exit. So if you enter high, you'll come out low. So what you've got to do is then look at what they're doing a lap or two at advance and say, well, they keep running in low and coming out high, which is what they'll do. Then if you run in high, come out low, you'll be able to pass them. If they're running high, coming out low, then you've got to run in low and come out high. If you're both running the same speed, it's going to be pretty hard to pass. Unless you do decide exactly where he's going to be and be at the opposite place on the racetrack or, you know, a car width down. Don't give them too much room. I see this all the time. They want to come in beside somebody and they want to leave a car between them. They want to run up here someplace. What you've got to do is get your car right down on them. Just because the car is sliding on dirt, there's no reason that you can't slide right along with them. Put the car at the same angle, and you don't have to give them any more than absolutely necessary. So by giving them 2 grooves, you probably are then going to slow down another tenth, and then you might not have the speed to make the pass. So run as close to them as you can. Don't. I see this happen all the time, that you'll be gaining at maybe 1 or 2 car lengths per lap. And you keep doing this for 5 or 6 laps, and then you get within 10 car lengths and try to make it all in 1 lap, and then spend all your time trying to gather it up, but try to make up too much in 1 lap. So if you're gaining 3 car lengths per lap, then wait till you're within 2 car lengths to make the pass. Don't try to do it from 10 and all of a sudden make this one big bonsai approach. The only time you do that is on the checkered flag, and it's, there's a lot of money involved. You might want to try something like that. But normal conditions, if you know that your momentum is carrying you 10 hundredths per lap, wait till you're 10 hundredths, then make the move to pass them. You might have run down the freeway before or down a highway and got in behind a truck and went to pass that truck. And you looked up and you pulled back in, and about that time you pulled back in, you said, there was enough room, I could have made it. But now you can't because you pulled back in. Now you've got to wait till the traffic keeps coming from the other direction for a while to get an opening, pull out behind that truck and pass. Okay, what would happen, what you should have done is when you pulled out to pass that truck, you got to go ahead and commit yourself to make that pass. Go ahead and take on by the truck. Now let's say that the room wasn't there. You say, oh my goodness, I've made a commitment here that I'm not going to be able to fulfill. There's a car coming the other direction. Well, the truck driver is going to look down and see you sitting beside him and say, this guy's crazy, he ain't going to make it. And the guy coming the other direction said, look at this guy sitting alongside the truck, I'm going to hit him head on. So everybody will move just a little bit, and you'll probably still make it. So I think what you got to do sometimes in racing is to make that commitment, even though that once in a while the hole won't be there. If you try to wait for the hole, you might end up waiting 15 laps, and the hole may never come again. So if the person makes a mistake, you've got to be able to put your nose in there, stuff your nose in there, go ahead and make a commitment. If you bump a fender once in a while, so be it. I mean, that's part of racing in some parts of the country, especially on dirt. They know that there's not total control over a race car, and you've got to be able to commit yourself. You've got to be able to show them that pecking order again, that every time there's an opening, I'm going to take it. And then the guy then will try to keep you from passing him, and then before you end up in the second groove. I had a student that called me here a while back and said, hey, Duke, we won a race. I said, we did. How did I win the race? He said, well, you was with me. He said, I remember when we rode in the school together that you told me that I was trying to drive the wrong car, that I was driving the guy's car that was in front of me, the other student's car, because you was trying to pass him and you was doing what he was doing. And he said, finally, what I decided to do is drive my own race car. And he said, before, every time I tried to get away from people, I'd be looking in my mirror, looking at other cars, I'd be trying to do stuff other than what I was capable of doing. And he said, the next thing you know, I'd make a mistake and they'd all get by and I'd spin out or something. He said, this time, I just drove my own race car like you told me. And that's one of the things I tell them in the school is drive your own car to its limit. Don't worry about how fast that other guy can go in any place on the racetrack, except when you're trying to pass him. If you're saying he's not very fast off the turns, then obviously that's where you're going to pass him. So make a commitment on the racetrack to drive your own race car, and make a commitment when you go to pass somebody, go ahead and pass them. Like I say, once in a while you're going to lose a fender, you're going to lose a tire, but if you're going to win, you're going to have to do that once in a while. Realize that anytime you enter high, you'll come out low. Anytime you go in low, you'll come out high. And with just that in mind, you'll be able to know what the other guy's doing by what he does. If he goes in low, he's coming out high, so be ready to pass him on the exit. If he goes in high, he's coming out low, so be ready to pass him on the exit on the high side. So just realize what their car is going to do, and realize just 5 degrees or 10 degrees of angle is going to be the whole difference of how that car turns at this point on the racetrack. We want to run the car up in the turn. We want to turn it, get the rear end back out with the throttle, and we want to be able to throttle the car one time only. Now, you see a lot of guys, a big mistake they make. They're sitting there playing with the throttle, trying to keep the rear end, run, trying to keep the rear end out behind them, where there should be one smooth, hold it out there, and then hold the throttle. If you might move off just a little bit, but it won't be roll. That's what gets the car where it starts doing this, and it becomes a problem coming out the turn. So go in there, off the throttle, onto the brake, back onto the throttle, hold the rear end out with it, and one acceleration, and try to get it to the floor without breaking it, without the rear end trying to come around. And you'll get lots of forward momentum that way. So the main thing is, anytime you hear somebody wrapping the throttle in the middle of the turn, they're trying to get the rear end where they want it. So they're not real smooth with it. You got to control it with that throttle. The rear end's got to be controlled with the throttle. Anytime you add throttle, the rear end will come out. Anytime you let off throttle, the rear end will come back behind you. So you can cock your car back to the right and drive it on off the turn. Okay, that's talking about passing. Like I said, the main thing is commitment and being someplace on the racetrack where they're not without you losing speed. You can't just chop the turn off and all of a sudden you lose speed, then they'll pull away again. Make a commitment and make a run at the person. Don't sit back and wait for them to make a mistake. Don't get on their bumper and try to out-accelerate them. You've got to go ahead and make your move, get around them, and get on by the car just as quick as you can. Okay, to summarize this, first of all, I'd like to say that you're not going to learn how to drive a race car from a video. We tell them in the school on dirt that we can't, in 100 laps, teach you how to be a race car driver or drive dirt. We can only take you out there and show you the proper line, is what we've tried to do in this video, show you when it's wrong and when it's right, and let you practice. And on asphalt, it's a little more easy and a little more precise, and you can, in 100 laps on the racetrack we give the students in the school, you can get them around there pretty good. But on dirt, it takes a little knack on your own. There's something that can't be trained. You've got to be able to feel the rear end of the car. That's what's real important, that you be able to feel the rear end with the throttle, that you know when it's out there, you know when you're getting forward traction, you know when it's coming around. That's the feel that you've got to have, and I have to sit in the car with you and go around with you to see if you've got that feeling. We also can't, in this video, show you the G-forces that are involved and how much correction's involved with the steering wheel. So the main summary we've got to say is that get a car that you don't, if you're doing this with the steering wheel, you're in trouble. There's something wrong with your technique or your car, or you're holding your hands wrong. Your feet should be in a position to where you are in a rhythm if you left foot the brake. If you right foot the brake, then you need to take that left foot, place it over on the floor on the bottom, and use that other foot and be real smooth in that rhythm, off and on. You never jerk the car. You never throw the car. If the track is real muddy, sometimes that's the only way you can get it to turn. But 90% of the time, you're not out there throwing the car around. If you're doing things like that, if you think that's what it is to drive one of these race cars, you're wrong. You got to use a lot of brakes on dirt. That's what surprises a lot of people that come to the school. They don't realize how the brakes set the car when they go into the turn, and how important it is to have the brakes so that when you mash them, You don't jump on them, and you don't hit them real lightly. You mash them, you squeeze the brakes, you just feel it in the floor. When you feel it, you can feel the car just set and turn for you. Then you can reach over and pick up the throttle and catch it in that turn back with the steering to the right, and then mash the throttle down. If you're rup around the turn, or if you're hitting the brakes and then back on them, then back on the brakes, you're making mistakes. I think one of the big mistakes a person makes is that they let off too early. They let off too early, they set the car up, and then the car straightens out, then they got to set it up again. And they got to sit there, then now they got to start playing with the throttle. Or they drive it in too deep. Anytime you drive the car in too deep, it'll push going in and be loose coming out. I had a guy just this morning call me, and he said that what I told him about his chassis, he'd called and said he had a problem with his chassis, that everything seemed to be about what we thought it should be, but he wasn't going real fast. And I said, you sure? He told me, he said it was pushing going in, loose coming out. I said, you sure you're just not trying to drive in too deep? And he called me this morning and said, I picked up over a second when I quit trying to go in so deep and then come out a little bit better. So sometimes that's important, is just where you gas and where you brake, and making sure that you don't set the car up here someplace. You'll be coming in and turn it back to the right before you ever get to the turn. Your turn is here, so you want to take the car as deep as you can, make the turn one time, and then drive off the turn this way. You don't want to set it up here any earlier than you have to and slide all the way down the racetrack sideways and then try to get your forward momentum. Drive in deep enough that you'll be able to make this without the car ending up here someplace. So you want to take the car deeper and deeper and deeper into the turn. And that's the problem I have with most students, is they want to let off too soon. I want you to take it on in, squeeze the brakes, let the car set, pick up the throttle, hold the set as much as necessary according to track conditions. The wetter it is, the more the car will be out like this. The rear end will be out. The drier it is, the more it'll be right straight behind you, and you'll just drive off the turn. So just try to keep them things in mind when you're driving. Be smooth. Get lots of practice. There's no such thing as too much practice in a race car. Get out in every practice session. If the promoter will let you rent the track, go rent the track. There's some tracks around the country, like where we have the track for the school, that if you're willing to pay insurance and rent the track, that they'll rent it to you. Get out and get lots of laps under race conditions, race track conditions, not as much in traffic as you need a track that's wet, that's dry slick toward the end of the night, and learn how to drive it in all different conditions. And I think maybe the main thing is to be smooth. Be consistent, be smooth, don't cross your feet up, don't move your pedals around or something like that that'll give you a problem, and put your hands in there in a position and get your steering fast enough that you don't have to do any hand-over-hand stuff, and I think you'll be a lot better off. Watch your air pressure and watch your stagger real close on dirt. That's probably the most important things on the dirt. Good luck.